Good morning, gentlemen. Nice to talk to you again. And this time I got something very important to discuss. It's something which concerns mankind. When I say mankind, I mean the human race. And we are at a very critical moment as far as world history is concerned. Now let's look at what's happening all around. I'm going to see two important places where there's likely to be a conflagration and, God forbid, an atomic attack, nuclear, hydrogen, whatever you call it, and the world could get destroyed. But basically, the brunt of this would be on the Western powers. Now that's the point. Keep bear in mind. The first hotspot is in Ukraine. Now, as so many Americans have said, and so many observers have pointed out, Ukraine in battle would never have taken place. But the Americans wanted it. Why? Because this helps them perpetuate their hegemony over Europe. Now, that is the point which we have to see. So they instigated Mr. Zelensky, is a little naive individual. I mean, he's been an actor all his life, And what he decided finally was that, well, I want to be with the Americans, I want to be with the British, I want to be one of them. Now, there is the Slav race. He's closer to the Russians. He can integrate with them. But racial theories have, of course, gone dead, but they were very much there. And during World War II, if you will recollect, a lot of Ukrainians collaborated with the Nazis. So when Putin says he wants to denazify, I mean, in a way, he is not off the mark. Well, Biden is not an enigma any longer, at least not for me. I've read him thoroughly. He is becoming senile. And he has not realized that if you catch a tiger by the tail, you know what's going to happen. He's going to eat you. And that's what precisely he has done. For small gains. What are those gains? And those gains are, he had thought, his TRP ratings will go up because they are below Donald Trump. And he could win again in 2024, which I'm pretty sure, if the Americans are wise, they'll ask him to go home, stay where you are, relax. Now, war has been instigated by him. He didn't agree to anything which the Russians wanted, security guarantees, nothing. NATO will not be made a member, will not make Ukraine a member, no assurance. Putin mounted a limited military operation. Now that is the effect. Irrespective of what the Western press is saying, the Russians never initially launched a full-scale invasion. If you remember, in the battle in Kosovo, the Americans were bombing Kosovo for 80 days. They declared a no-fly zone. And then only they sent in their soldiers. Same thing in Iraq, bombed for 70 days. Till Saddam Hussein didn't know what was happening, and then the NATO forces went in, Americans rather. Putin didn't do anything like that because he miscalculated. Now let's accept the fact. He thought Zelensky and the government will collapse like a pack of cards. It didn't happen. And it's not going to happen because the entire Zelensky government is being beefed up by the Americans. Only yesterday there was news that Biden has asked Congress to approve another $33 million worth of military aid to Ukraine. And they have given millions of dollars earlier. They have given them latest weapons. Yet they haven't made much of a headway, the Ukraine. They haven't been able to stop the Russians. That's the crucial point. And given away almost 20% of their territory to the Russians. So despite all the miscalculations made by Putin, I think it's still on a bit firmer wicket. But the danger for escalation is there, nuclear war. Because the Americans are not going to accept defeat. They aren't going to do it. And they got small nations like Poland and Bulgaria all talking nonsense. These countries don't know what's in store for them. And once there's a nuclear exchange, I don't think Poland, Bulgaria or any of these countries are going to exist. They will be just big smudges on the map. I wish their leadership could realize what a nuclear exchange is. And Europe is heading to it. Why? Europeans have a penchant for war. Two world wars started in Europe. You can deny it. Europe was the playground of dictators. Benito Mussolini, Hitler, Stalin, General Franco, just think of it. There were a lot of them there. And even after the war, all sort of warmongers coming in. There was the chap, the British Prime Minister. He was a warmonger. Then you had George Bush, and all sorts of people were there. And net result is, there is a likelihood of a war again. Clinton, another great dangerous thing he did. He had made a promise after the breakup from the Soviet Union that NATO would not expand eastwards, and yet he went and did the same thing in 98. And no wonder he didn't accept the application of Boris Yeltsin to become a member of NATO. Otherwise, what would be the reason for NATO to exist? There's no reason. They need an enemy, and Russia is there. But all these calculations will become a big zero once there's a nuclear conflagration, and there is a possibility of it. And this is not the only place where this thing is going on. There's a lot of problem in the Pacific Ocean, rather I would say the Eastern Pacific, the South China Sea, and here they are up against a power which is economically very strong. See, Russia was never an economic power. It's a military power, a big military power, but that's about all. Their economy is nothing much. 1/20th is the GDP as far as the USA is concerned. But China is a different kettle of fish. It's almost close to the American economy. It has a massive army, and it is ambitious. It has got the capability. They have realized that they need aircraft carriers. They got 2 of them. Russians got 0. They got 1 aircraft carrier, which is, I think, I will call it from time memorial, maybe to be kept in a museum or something. And is using coal, I think, for use, while the Chinese are a little better. But they're going in for the nuclear powered ones like the Americans have got, and they've got 10 of them, the Americans, and that's their main plus point. Now the Chinese have started expanding. They have made friends with Cuba, and that's right, in the belly of the Americans. They've got a base in Africa, in the Horn of Africa, and now the Solomon Islands. And that is the danger. Solomon Islands is very close to Australia, and the Chinese are going to set up a military base there. And Americans, Australians are worried. Now what's going to happen now? If the Chinese set up a base there, the Americans have always said that we will erase it, in the sense we will attack it and finish it. That could be the beginning of the Third World War also from the east. Then there is the Strait of Taiwan, and now recently a US warship sailed through it, and the Chinese were pretty angry about it. But yet China doesn't have the amphibious capability to mount an invasion of Taiwan. If they had it, they would have done it. You can keep bombing Taiwan, but if you don't have the infantry soldiers, the marines to cross the strait and land on the beaches, how are you going to win? You can't going to win at all. And then you have to deal with the American 7th Fleet. Now, how strong that fleet is a question, because after the latest sinking of the Moskva in the Black Sea with the missile, I don't know how many layers of ECM and ECCM have these carriers got, the American carriers. and if 100 missiles are fired at them, and even if 1 or 2 get in, and that's the end of the carriers. But China is wary of those carriers. That's accept the fact. But at the same time, China is ambitious. It's going in for bases, and they got bases in Burma. They got the base in Pakistan, also Gwadar. Though Pakistan, I think, has realized that sitting in the Chinese lab is not going to be all that good, and they want to make friends with Americans. That's why there was a motley crowd which joined up and they ousted Imran Khan. That's one point. So there are 2 flashpoints in the world, Ukraine, and second is the Eastern Pacific. Now the Eastern Pacific is a very diverse area. It's got a lot of littoral states, and the South China Sea, which is a part of this ocean, is a mineral rich area, and then 90% of which is claimed by China. The other countries got no power. There's Philippines, there's Indochina, that is Vietnam, Indonesia. The countries got no power. They won't stand against the Chinese. They will be wiped out. So it's for the Americans to come in and stand. But the Americans, as we have seen historically, they will intervene with a lot of gusto, but when it comes and the ships are down, they can't sustain a campaign and they just give up and go away. Now, every battle since 1945, I want anybody to challenge me on this, the Americans have just thrown the towel and gone. Iran, Iraq, Libya, Vietnam, Afghanistan, everywhere you name it. That's why I say even in Ukraine, it's going to be the same story. But Ukraine is a little different because they're being posed by nuclear power, and America feels losing Ukraine is going to be a threat to America, could configure a war. Same thing in the South China Sea and the Eastern Pacific. Despite the 7th Fleet being there, the Americans do not have the military infantry to move into combat. That's the crucial point. If I remember when I was doing the Staff College course, we learned that the American Army's got 16 and a half active divisions and the Indian Army's got 29. So you can well see what's going to happen. They are highly mechanized, highly mobile, lots of helicopters, all that is okay. But the man is required to fight the battle. No wonder that great General Field Marshal Viscount Montgomery of El Alamein had said, in any battle, whatever you say, it is the infantry soldier which must hold the ground, and that is the Achilles heel of the Americans. Not only of the Americans, of the small countries of Europe who are sitting and talking all that big noise which they are making, It reminds me sometimes, whether they are wolves or jackals trying to imitate lions. I mean, it looks a little silly, but that's a silly comparison, but that's what it looks to me. The Americans had to play their cards very, very carefully now, because there is a danger of a nuclear exchange. Earlier, when America dropped the atomic bombs on Japan, the Japanese didn't have anything to retaliate with, So 200 people died, Emperor Hirohito had nothing to do and say, okay, hands up. Things have changed. They wanted to drop the atomic bomb in Korea, they couldn't do it. Russia had the atomic bomb also. They wanted in Vietnam, they did not do it. Chinese also had the weapons. And now, China and Russia are nuclear powers. India and Pakistan also to a certain extent, but they are irrelevant because they are not any ambition. They don't have any ambition to dominate the world. China has. And once you have an ambition, there's going to be a clash. There has to be a clash. And that is the crucial factor which is very, very dangerous. That means the Eastern Pacific is also a very hot spot for a world war to begin. I don't say it's going to start tomorrow or day after. You see, there's a combination of events. After all, after the Treaty of Versailles, it took 20 years for the next world war to come in. And now, since the collapse of the Soviet Union and then the rise of the Americans, it's going to be another 10 years, maybe 5 years, 2 years, we don't know, but it's got nothing immediate, but it could start any time. So this is my interesting observation. World War III, I hope it doesn't take place, because I've been a soldier, I've been in battle, and I don't want war and destruction. I am not favoring it, but that can only take place if both both sides clap hands. So, gentlemen, that is the crux of the issue. World War III is on the anvil. But I hope it can be stopped. It doesn't take place. I will close now and say goodbye, gentlemen, and Jai Hind. Look after yourself. Watch my videos, share them, like them.